So Britt Larsen is the founder of Livelihood. She is a career coach, and she has helped so many people find their right pathway and what they are looking for and the right way to plan out their career. Again, we appreciate you chilling with us as we're figuring out this new platform. We think that it's going to be great, but we do have a few kinks to work out as we do this. But in the meantime, I'm just going to shut up and let Britt take it from here. I hate reading bios. It's like, I'd rather hear people talk about themselves. And I know you're going to share your story tonight, Britt. So I will turn it over to you and let you take it from here.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to make sure. Can you guys see my screen? That work? Can you just give me a thumbs up, Robin? That work that you can see discovering your career path.
I think we've got I think we have a delay.
Okay.
So let's just wait for a second and see if it shows up.
Awesome. I can talk about myself while we wait. Okay, you can see it. Awesome. Okay, that's good to know that I don't get ahead of myself as I share my workbook. So as Robin mentioned, my name is Britt Larsen. I'm an executive career coach and the founder of Livelihood. Livelihood is a community for women who work, and anyone who wants to be part of it is a part of it. So tonight you are being initiated into Livelihood. You are part of the community. I really created Livelihood to fill a need that I had in my own life, like a lot of entrepreneurs do. I didn't realize I was starting a business. In all reality, I was pretty frustrated with trying to figure out what I wanted to do next and feeling a lack of resources and support and guidance and help. And I basically created this discovery process for myself. It's all the questions that I wish someone had asked me. It's all the things that I wish every high school and college student thought about, instead of, the stupid questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years, that make most of us feel itchy and paralyzed and scared and frustrated. So as you have questions as we go through this, I want you to ask them to Robin in the chat. We'll get to them at the end. Robin, just confirm with me. We're going to do about 40 minutes and then Q&A at the end. Okay. And so with that, I want you to be able to ask questions as they come so you don't forget at the end. So feel free to throw them in the chat as they come. This is something that, like I said, I created for myself, and I'll tell you a little bit about my story. But then it's adapted to be something that I help a ton of my own clients, my friends and family all started flocking to me because I became known as the person who could help other people figure out what was missing in their life when it came to their jobs. And then I realized people would pay me to do it. And I realized that was more fun than managing people who were lost. As you can probably imagine, helping my employees, both people that I had hired and people that I had inherited from previous bosses that I was replacing, I didn't make a lot of the executives happy when I led other people through this process, and they realized that their future was not at our company. So I started to get some feedback from my bosses that helping other people discover what was next was all fine and dandy as long as it was within the walls of our company. And that's when I decided to take Livelihood full time. A little bit about me and my background. I started off in political communications. That is my bread and butter, is crisis comms. I used to work for a member of Congress, and then I worked for the governor of Florida. I have some just insane stories from those experiences. Really amazing time spent. My boss moderated a presidential debate. I got to be involved in just some amazing, life-changing aspects of government, and did a lot of stuff that I was in no way qualified to do. I was the youngest communications director on Capitol Hill when I got promoted. I was the ripe old age of 21. And it's really been an interesting path to see how all of these things all led to me doing what I'm doing now. I'm sure you have your own experience with that as well, where your career path, or maybe this crossroads that you're currently at where you're a part of the Tech Moms program feels like this, jumbled mess of steps, missteps along the way. And here you are kind of at this crossroads and you're taking this challenge on yourself. You're going to be learning this amazing new skill, or you're in that process, and you're going to have the same experience. You're going to look back and see how everything kind of added up to this moment where you became a part of this program. And all of those missteps along the way are only going to inform your decision moving forward. So one of the things I do with my one-on-one coaching clients, if you and I were on the phone one-on-one, I would tell you, please be honest with yourself as we go through this process. Honestly, tonight is going to be a lot of soul searching and me asking you a ton of questions. And because of that, and because you and I are, just looking at each other over Zoom, it's even more important that you stop yourself from just saying what you think you're supposed to say, or what lies maybe you've told yourself about your career path. Like, because I've been out of the workforce for a while, I can't do X, Y, or Z. Those are things that may or may not be true, but more importantly, I want you really just to get to the heart of what you really want out of your career path. And that's what tonight is all about. So if we were doing this in person, you may say something like, well, I know I have to work full time in order to make the kind of money that I want to. And I would say, check that at the door. That may be true. That may definitely be true when you're first starting to get back into the workforce, but that doesn't necessarily have to be true. And so what I want you to do is kind of take that tunnel vision that maybe you have coming into tonight, that you've told yourself, this is what has to come out of my involvement with Tech Moms, or this is what's next for me, and it has to be this. And you kind of open up your mind and try and have as broad of a perspective about the opportunities that you have moving forward. This image on this workbook is so important to me, that we really narrow in and focus, not like this, but we really focus on you and your career path, and not let, again, those lies, maybe things that you've heard in pop culture or social media, or I have a gap on my resume, no one's gonna hire me. Just try and get rid of all that noise and focus in on what's most important to you. I always start off with my 4 career confidence truths. And one thing I will just tell you really quick, people pay a lot of money to get access to my workbook and to do this discovery process with me. So if you wouldn't mind just committing not to like taking pictures and sharing them, if you need to do that for yourself, I'm all for it. I'm here for you. But I just wanted to mention that this is my bread and butter. This is like the heart of my business. So I want you to take notes or do whatever you need to do so that this is a valuable process. So please, if someone's interested in it, or if it's helpful for you, you can actually purchase this workbook and a video of me walking through this, as well as many other topics. So we'll get to that. But most importantly, my 4 career confidence truths. So to me, career confidence is not, I know exactly what I do and I know what I'm doing next, and I'm good at my job and I make a ton of money and I love what I'm doing. That to me is kind of this like legally blonde, I just love what I'm doing and I'm so over the top confident. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you owning your past, and that includes the mistakes that you've made along the way. Trust me, I've made plenty of them. I was even thinking going into this, I was let go from a job. Yeah, I'm a career coach, and I don't ever really talk about it. And I've been thinking about how I should. There are missteps in my career path that led me to being the best coach for the people that I work with because of those things that happened. And that really goes to the first truth. Only you can change and determine your career path. And just by being on this training with me right now, you have recognized that. You have owned that you can determine what's next for you. And only you can do that. When I was younger, this was hard for me to understand because I thought someone along the way is going to guide me and tell me what's next, or I'm going to have a boss who's going to be really good at professional development and they're going to lead and guide me to what's next. They're going to promote me because they're going to see everything that I do and they're going to make sure that I get rewarded for those things. It's just not going to happen. And you've probably seen that this has been true in your own life outside of your career. that you get to own your future and determine it. And if you don't believe that, I want you to start saying it as an affirmation every day, that you get to determine what's next for you. Are there going to be some limiting factors based on your resume? Sure. I throw out this extreme example that if a lawyer walks into surgery and is just really confident that they can give you brain surgery, we're all going to remind them that's not imposter syndrome. That's you not having the skill set to give me surgery. But if you walk into a situation and you're just new at it and you've owned that you're determining what's next for you, that's really what I want. The next one is when you get caught up in office politics, you lose. When you focus on results, you win. If any of you follow me on social media, if you do after this, you will hear me talk about girls gossip, women work. This is my kind of gender neutral version of that. And the idea here is that you, as a woman, especially, have some things that you're going to have to overcome that the men in the workplace will not have to. And maybe that's a gap on your resume. Maybe that's figuring out how to express emotion in a way that's appropriate for the workplace. I got a DM from a really loyal follower today on Instagram who was told by someone that she asked to close their door. They were being loud in the office today. And she said, "Hey, can you close your door? It's kind of loud." And she doesn't have a door. And they said to her, "Oh, look who's moody today." Those are just things that women, I hate to say it, we have to deal with. And we have to just from the outset focus on the work. And I was so proud of her for saying, "You know what? If my boss came over here and asked you to shut your door, you wouldn't have cared. You wouldn't have made this comment. So please don't do that in the future." And she closed his door and she went and did her job. And, that doesn't mean that you don't report things. That doesn't mean that these things don't matter. I talk about sexism at work probably more than anyone I know. But at the end of the day, the pay gap and all these problems, I think, will be resolved if women just focus on doing their jobs. And that needs to be the focus, is your unique skill set that you're bringing to the table. Which brings us to number 3, which is every single person you work with and for is human. So often I see people complain about the job search process or their boss or a coworker or a client. And I just want to say, well, yeah, they're human, they're making very human mistakes. And if you want your boss to treat you like a human, give you some leeway when there's a death in your family or you have a baby, then you need to do the same to them. I think this is especially important for women in your position. You each have your own unique story, but you are coming at your jobs from a really interesting and unique place. And I think if you can model behavior that, alternative candidates or people with differing backgrounds can treat other people like humans, then maybe that will kind of trickle down and rub off on all the people around you. And I've seen this really change since COVID. It's been fascinating to watch that, now with Zoom, we're seeing into people's houses. Sorry, my office is so boring, but this is kind of my basement. This is my office. I've been, seeing women, holding a baby. Today my childcare fell through and I was on with a client. Her baby was sick and we're both, trying to get our jobs done, watching our monitors to see when our babies are going to wake up. That's just life. Let's just treat each other like the humans we are. And then lastly, there's no such thing as a dream job, but you can build your dream life. And this goes back to that ownership principle that you get to decide what's next for you. You get to decide what you want from your life. And I have clients who often say, "Wait, what? There's not a dream job? Why did I hire you to help me find a job if there's not a perfect job out there?" But let me tell you that I find this so freeing and empowering. I just find it so exhausting to think that there's one perfect job out there and I have to do everything right. And if I do everything right in the Tech Moms program, and if I do X, Y, and Z, then I'll get this interview and I'll get this job and my life will be perfect. But then what happens when that company downsizes? Or what happens if you are qualified, but there's someone just a little bit, better for the job? Does that mean that it all just falls apart? No, there's another job out there. Let me tell you right now, there's never been a more exciting time to be looking for a job, especially as a woman, especially as someone who may need flexibility. It's just been incredible to see how things are shifting. COVID was a mess. I don't want to downplay that at all. And I know a lot of us were personally impacted by it. I'm trying to focus on the positive and just help you recognize that the next job doesn't have to be the job. I see this a lot with women just in general, but I see it especially with women who are making a big change, changing industries or learning a new skill. They think the next job is the job and they get paralyzed by that. I don't want you to find this paralyzing. I want you to feel free and open to possibilities and recognize I may be somewhere for 2 years, I may be somewhere for 5, I may be somewhere for 20. And let me just tell you this stat that plays into this. I'm really hoping they update it, but the Bureau of Labor Statistics did a study in 2015 that the average person between the ages of 18 and 52 had 12 jobs. So that wasn't even at the point that they were retiring. And that was in 2015. So you can imagine it's only going to increase. I think about myself and my generation, just behind me. My dad worked at HP for 35 years, and then he's semi-retired and is the COO of my brother's company. So he's had 2 jobs, and really he's had one. This is his semi-retirement. He's kind of helping my brother with his company. I've had 7. And right now I'm a career coach, but then I still do some PR stuff on the side because I'm crazy and I love to work. I bet you can think about yourself. If you really think about teenage years in addition to that, it's even more. So please, please free yourself of this idea that there's a dream job because it will just scare you. And I don't want you to be scared. Okay, so this is the fun part. This is where I let you kind of daydream, and I'm going to give you some time. If you don't have paper by you, grab your phone, maybe pull up a note and just start thinking about these questions. I think the fun way to view this is, where do you go when you daydream? I had a client this morning who we went through kind of part of this process. And I told her, next week, we're going to talk about what do you do when you daydream? And she had just said, sometimes I just want to throw in the towel and work at an ice cream shop. And as we were talking, I thought that's a cute idea. I think we all, sometimes dream of doing something that's just so different from what we've done before. And when I really honed in on why that's appealing to her, she said it just sounds so stress-free. She's a crisis comms manager. She is sick and tired of working in government. And so I helped her see, maybe you don't need to work in an ice cream store, but you want that same feeling, right? Where she's interacting with people, where she's providing a fun service instead of always cleaning up other people's messes. There are thousands of jobs out there that will fulfill that need, in addition to maybe owning an ice cream shop. So I want you to think about a good day in your dream life. And my idea here is that, this isn't a perfect day. This isn't, the best day of your life or the best day of your job. But I just want you to let yourself daydream about what it feels like. Let's think about some emotive words. If I use that client that I just mentioned, she used the word fun. She doesn't feel like her job is fun. And I can tell you right now, I don't think most people think what she does is fun. And she said, I don't need every day to be fun, but I work around a lot of people who are really stressed. I need the environment to be more calm. And she's nuts. She needs a little bit of a crisis to solve now and then. That's why I know she'd be miserable actually scooping up ice cream all day. But she needs more of the calm. And that's becoming more of a non-negotiable for her because she's burnt out. She's ready for something new. So write down some feeling words. Maybe it's content. If you've jumped into Tech Moms and you're ready for a job that feels more stable, you just want to feel like I have a job that's providing for my family. Does it bring you joy? One of the best parts of my job is that I help other people find joy in theirs. And you heard kind of my version of this is that I was constantly helping the people that I manage kind of figure out what they love to do, how they wanted to feel at work. And often we realized together they weren't ever going to find that at the company that we were working at. And that made my boss mad, several different bosses mad. And so I had to realize, what does it feel like? Well, I find so much joy in helping other people figure out what they're good at. And I cannot do that as a manager of someone else's company. And I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. My mom owned her own business. It was time for me to take the leap, which gets to where are you? And, maybe that's a company. Maybe it's more of a state of mind. Maybe you really love the idea of working in tech because you can work from home. That's something that we're all talking a lot about. Maybe there's a cause that you're really passionate about and you would love to work for a tech company that is doing good for that cause. One of my favorite things about the last 18 months has been helping a lot of teachers move out of education and into ed tech. They can use all of the same skill set that they have for teaching and education, but apply it to an industry that's growing that can pay them a lot better. They feel like they're helping people, and that same skill set has been transferable to a completely new industry. So I want you to think about what you're doing. And, we can all just put working, but what does that mean? And I want you to get as nitty gritty as possible. I love communicating. My degree was in communications. I have no problem texting and being on the phone. What I'm doing right now, like, this does not make me nervous. I could probably go through this process in my sleep. I enjoy this. So I write down, if I was doing this process, I'd say answering emails. Like, I like that. I like that part of working. You may feel like I really just want to produce something, or I love brainstorming, or, when I was involved with a project with my kids' school, I loved leading. And so it can be as ambiguous as those things, or it can be as specific as I want to be coding on this certain thing. These are all questions that you're obviously not going to answer all right now. Hopefully, if this goes well tonight, I've planted a teeny tiny little seed and asked you a question that pricks at your heart, that just gives you a little push and direction towards something that gets you excited. Because at the end of the day, my whole goal is to help women make more money. And if you're excited about what you do, and I don't think you're going to be excited every day, you're not going to be excited every hour, but maybe you get excited enough to enjoy what you're doing, to make a little more money, and then your life is better. That's my hope. So that gets us to the last question. What's different about this from your current life? For a lot of you, I'm guessing there's a huge difference. Maybe you have a full-time job that is in no way providing for your family and you need to, make a big shift, or you just want to work in something, completely different than you have before. Sometimes it's slight changes, like I just need a different schedule. And it's really important to know what you don't want. We all think about parenting. I'm a new mom. My baby's 10 months. And so I thought a lot about, a lot of what we learn from our parents is what we don't want to do, which I love my parents. I have amazing parents, but there are a lot of things that I've learned from them, from teachers, from managers, that I want to do differently, right? So it's that same idea. What do I want out of my life that feels different than what I'm experiencing right now? So here's just kind of another push, and there's that magnifying glass again. Maybe you use some words that were, really broad when we talked about, what does it feel like? Where are you? You said at home. You don't really know exactly. Let's narrow in on this a little bit more. I want to feel blank about my career. I hope you're taking notes and kind of thinking about that feeling word. What do you really want to feel when you walk out of work every day, whether that's closing your office door, slamming your laptop shut? How do you want to feel? And for me, it was really like, it was fulfilled. I wanted to feel fulfilled. And what was so important about that to me was that it was very different than what I had been doing before. Working in politics is draining. I was so burned out. I was so done. And it felt like I had this skill set that was only good for this industry. And then, like I explained when I introduced myself, as I really started to reflect back on what I had done leading up to that point, I realized I'd always been good at helping people with this. I just had this experience with an amazing client of mine who has always been good at management, and he was making good money. It's not like he had a bad job. But when he answered this question He said, I want to feel helpful. I want to feel like I'm helpful. I want to feel proud of my career. And I pushed him on that because I thought, wow, that's pretty broad. You could go back to medical school, or you could go be a cross guard or a bus driver with that kind of direction. There's lots of things you could do that would be helpful. And he said, you know what? If I make more money, I can help more people work with you. That's what I want to do. I want to make more money so I can help more people. And, not just through me, but other people that he felt like if he had more money, he could give more. That feels like it's not really connected to his job. And I know we all dream about having the kind of money where we can really, really help people, but he put a dollar figure to that. And he applied for a job that I sent him. He got a 40% increase just by changing that perspective of, I want to make more money so I can help other people. And he has since hired Red Rocker Resume, who you'll hear from next week, Angela and I, to help about 6 or 7 of his friends go through this process and get a new resume. And what I think is so cool about that is he found his why. I'm sure you've heard that phrase, start with why. What I loved about that example is that, frankly, it really has very little to do with what he was doing. He's working for a company that's very similar to what he was doing before. And his title is definitely a bump up, but it's almost identical work. But because he found his why, he narrowed in on it and said, that's it. I really want to have the kind of money where I can help people. And he's doing it. So each day I'd like to know I'm contributing what? And again, this may be more about your family than your job. It may be that kind of holistic view of that client that I just gave you. And I want to accomplish blank with my career. I think a lot of us feel like, we work to put a roof over our heads. At least that's how I feel. I've got to pay the bills, and I have a certain, basic needs that need to be met. And then oftentimes I take on more work because I want to go on a vacation, or I have goals and dreams beyond putting a roof over my head and food on my table. And when I think about that question, I kind of think about, what am I going to feel when I'm at retirement age, or as a grandma talking to my grandkids about my career? What do I want to say when I talk about it? That was also a wake up call for me. I really love being able to say that I worked on Capitol Hill. It's awesome. It's, impressive and cool. And I worked for a governor, but I'm so, so much prouder of what I built with Livelihood. And, from the outside, is not nearly as impressive. I have this little online community and I'm slowly building this business, but I'm so much more proud of it. And I think that's because I really thought about, what do I want to accomplish? Well, I want other people, once they've interacted with me, to have more clarity about what they want from their lives. Which gets to the last one, which is, I want to put blank first. What is your biggest priority? This always makes my clients go, ugh. There's some kind of groan or horrible noise that comes out of their mouth. And that's why I love this question. I'm actually going to just stop for a second and let you think about it.
Britt, I want to hop in for a second here with the question.
Yeah.
That when you ask this, I want to put blank first. Like for me, without even skipping a beat, I would say family, right? Like that's my thing. But are you talking about anything in your life, or are you talking about on a career level? Because I would say I would answer that question differently if I were talking about what I would put first in terms of my professional life or in terms of my career. But do you mean everything in our life, or looking at our lives from a career perspective?
I think it's a really good question. Here's my very clear answer. It depends. For me, I like to think about it as, what is the thing that I'm struggling to prioritize that I need to make sure my job fits into? So one of the things I like to say is that your job needs to fit into your life, not the other way around. You can't work first and make that everything. And then if you have time, or then if you have the wherewithal to focus on your health, your family, all the other things, because we're all a whole person, then we'll figure it out. So for me, when I look at that, I say my health, because it's always the thing that I let go of. I developed some weird health symptoms on the hill because I worked 80-hour weeks and I was a mess. And I was, basically living on Dr. Pepper in order to live. So that's how I view it, because I know my job and my health are so intrinsically tied. I put my health. My family will always be a priority. I'm really good about maintaining that. Even when I lived on the other side of the country, I talk to my mom every day. I use my paycheck to come home. So I think doing some of that own internal investigation, it may be smart just to look at it strictly as career. Like, I need to make more money. That is my priority. Or it may be, I need more of a path. I need to go somewhere with growth, because I'm sick of job hopping. So I hope that helps. It's maybe more specific to you. I think all of us would probably put our family, all of us probably should put some form of self-care because we're women, and stereotypically that's not our strong suit. But if you feel like, that's not really what I want to focus on, I need to focus on making more money, staying somewhere longer, feeling like I have a more of a career path than just a job. Uh, what I'll say is, what makes you uncomfortable to put in that blank? That's what I tell my clients. Because a lot of the men I talk to, they're calling me because they're at an executive level and they've spent so much time building their careers, and they're realizing they weren't around for their kids' lives. And they want to say something like, well, I want to make more money, but they check themselves and say, I need to put work-life balance first. Like, that is the key. And they make less money after working with me because we figured that out. So if you can't answer it right now, think about what makes you uncomfortable and what you need to work on. And I might even add something like patience, or like accepting myself with grace, and the path that has led me to where I am. I'm really impatient. I always am annoyed at the lack of progress in my career, which is ironic because I was a VP by the time I was 29. Like, it's not like I had all these stumbling blocks along the way, and it's probably why I was able to be successful. But if I was to go through this process right now, I'd probably say patience. I'm trying to really focus on slow growth with my business. So whatever makes you uncomfortable. um I'm sure you've probably heard this acronym. Sorry, I have to take a little drink of water real quick. Sorry for being human and not being able to talk for an hour without some water. um you may have heard this acronym: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. If you haven't heard it before, it's a very corporate acronym, so you'll probably hear it, um you know as you move into a new job. The idea with this is that I don't want you to just write something down that says, I need a new job, or I'm looking for a new job, or I'm being trained for a new job. I want you to get as specific as possible. That example that I gave you from that client who said, if I make more money, I can do X, Y, and Z. I made him write down exactly what he was going to do with that money. And I'm totally a believer in affirmations and how we talk to ourselves. The universe, God, however you view it, putting it out there and saying, this is what I want. I think it's real. I think the main thing is that we just start believing that it's possible. And it's probably been a while since you've let yourself, like I said, daydream. So why not write down some really crazy dreams? I did this when I first took livelihood full time. And I'll tell you right now, I've actually never talked about this publicly, but I was making well over six figures. I had a really good job. And I loved the work. I was going through IVF, and I've talked a little bit about just the fun parts of being a mom and trying to figure out as a woman what you're going to do with your life. And I wrote down, I want to be making as much as I am with my job currently with livelihood in 2 years. And that's a pretty big goal. And I'm almost there. Like, I'm not quite there. Um, some months I've made a lot more than I did in my salary job. And I'm not telling you that you need to work for yourself. I think there are more days, honestly, that I miss the collaboration, and I miss a lot of what comes with an office job. My point is, I put it out into the universe, and everything I do ties back to that goal. So make it simple, make it direct and detailed. You'll see in the next slide, I basically give you, some lines for you to write this on your own. So you can kind of go through this process with me, just start jotting down what you want. What do you want out of your next job? It needs to be meaningful and motivating. If it's something like, I need this job so I can pay my mortgage, and that lights you on fire, awesome. For me, that does nothing. Like, I already know I'm going to work hard enough to pay my bills. That's what I was referencing earlier. For me, it has to be bigger than that, or I'll just do the absolute bare minimum and I won't push myself. And I know I won't be happy if I don't push myself. But at the same time, it's got to be achievable. You need it to be realistic. Make sure that you have the resources to attain it. So you may end up having 2 or 3 versions of your SMART goal, where one is kind of the 5-year plan, one's the 10-year plan, maybe scale it back, you have a 6-month version. And that's totally fine. I think it's really helpful to kind of know what your North Star is. And it's going to change. I could never have told you I would like to launch a community for women who work and be your career coach. That wasn't a thing when I was in college. But like I said, I can see those pieces lining up along the way when I look back on my career path. You want it to be relevant, it's reasonable, it aligns with your values and what matters to you. And if you need reminders on that, go back to your notes of what you've written down about your priorities and what you want to feel at the end of each day and what you want to contribute to the organization that you work with. And lastly, you have a deadline. I said 2 years because I was pregnant when I wrote this down. If I hadn't been having my first kid in the way that I did, I would have said a year. And that's my big goal. I've got kind of medium-sized goals and small goals in the meantime. One of my big goals with my career was to launch my career courses, and I was supposed to do it when I was 6 months pregnant. That felt like a really good time to do it. And then I broke my leg. And this was last August. I fell in my backyard when I was just doing some very minimal weeding. It wasn't even a big job. And I had to get surgery while I was pregnant, which meant I had to be awake. It's quite the story. And I had 6 OBs watching. I had a high risk pregnancy already. And so just during COVID, everything that could have gone wrong with my pregnancy did. And so I didn't film my courses when I wanted to. So I have my baby last November, and I've got that 2-year goal, and I adjusted it. Trust me, life happens and you're going to have to adjust your goals. But I just felt very, very pushed to film them when my baby was 2 months old. When I look at the video, like, I'm still puffy, like, let alone the baby weight. Like, I look like I just had a baby. The content is so good. I've sold a bunch already. I'm so glad I did it when my baby was really young. It meant that this whole summer I could basically work very little and create this passive income stream. It's something I would have never planned to have happen the way that it did, but because I wrote my goal down, I was able to stick to that deadline. And like I said, things shifted, didn't happen how I wanted it to, but I kept going back to that goal that I created in my mind. So this is one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite entrepreneurs. Emily Lay has created a planner company called Simplified. She's a really fun social media follow if you need inspiration for what you put in your feed. But this is one of my favorite quotes. She says, your job is just one tiny part of your life. We talk so much about choosing jobs or selecting careers. What if we chose a life instead? And that's what you're doing by being part of this program. And when I first met Trina and after talking to Robin, I'm just so inspired by all of you making such huge changes for your life, and that your life and your goals for your life should drive what you decide to do with your career. And again, I think you're doing it by just being here tonight. I want you to write down that goal, that SMART, make sure it's really specific, measurable, achievable. Oh my gosh, I forgot R for a second. Relevant and time bound. It's too late for me to remember acronyms. And put this somewhere that you can reference it. I will tell you, my clients who print it out and put it on their walls or make it the backdrop, their background on their desktop, they get it. Like, it happens as they're looking at jobs, as they're training themselves, as they're educating themselves, as they reach out to people, network. It's all coming back to that goal, and it gets tweaked along the way. I had a client earlier this year who had been at Goldman Sachs for 10, 11 years. She was a VP, super impressive. I mean, as corporate of a background as you can have, very sure of herself, very confident. she starts working with me because she's burnt out, ready to do something new. I don't know if you know the Goldman Sachs culture, but it's known for being really, really difficult on people. And so she's ready to try something new. So she talks to me. The first 5 minutes, she's really hyping herself up and selling herself to me. And I'm trying to peel back the layers. And I finally just said, do you really need to be making the same kind of money you are now? Because that's what she kept saying. I need somewhere where I work a lot less, but I need to make the same amount of money. And that was, what she had kept telling herself. And she said, you know what? I probably could make a little less if I'm working a little less. And again, I just kept pulling back the layers of these things that she had told herself that she truly, truly wanted. And in the end, she ended up finding a job where she took about a $5,000 pay cut, but she works half the amount of time that she did. And so she has a little side hustle that she was able to actually pursue that makes her super happy. And so she hasn't even really taken a pay cut at all, and she's working a lot less. Now, this is someone who's, earned into that. This is not something that happened overnight for her. But because she challenged those ideas in her mind that, well, the only reason I'd leave Goldman Sachs is if I was making a ton more money, she took, in a lot of ways, a demotion in her title. But she doesn't care. She's making really good money, and she works traditional 35 to 40-hour weeks. And she used to work, closer to 70 on average, and often more than that during busy seasons. And so when you look at her hourly rate, she's making a ton more money. So I am just so proud of her for challenging what she thought her goal really was. As we wrap up here, I want you to just think about how you can make this goal a reality. And this is really, I think, the homework that you need to, noodle on, let kind of simmer in your brain and your heart as you walk away from tonight, about how you can prepare to make your goal a reality. Obviously, just by being here, you're doing that, you're showing that, you're proving it, that it's important to you. But what action can you take in the next few weeks, months, year? We all know that habits and goals only happen with consistency. So what's something that you can consistently do to make this goal a reality? One of my biggest beefs with women is that we talk a lot and we don't always act. And I was actually thinking about this today. I have a friend who's kind of in the middle of launching a business, and she's just talking about it nonstop. And because I am who I am and I'm so blunt, I just said, why don't you just do it? Can we stop talking about it? We just do it. And she laughs. She knows I love her. She knows I believe in her. And I'm just sick of hearing about it. I just want her to take action. With Livelihood, I did the same thing. You guys, when I first launched Livelihood, it was so ugly. The first version of my website looked like a MySpace page. And it's evolved many times. It's beautiful now because I was finally able to, really hire and justify expertise in the people that I hired. I couldn't do that before. There was no reason to. I wasn't making any money. And I think the same thing can be true for you. Just start. One of my favorite entrepreneurial principles I think is important for you to know too. If you're not embarrassed of where you started, then you didn't start soon enough. And I think that's really true. You're going to muck through this process. You're going to make mistakes as you change what you're doing. And it's beautiful and messy and awesome. Think about why it's important to you. I think putting pen to paper to that is really important. When I looked at the goals that I have made for myself in the past, I don't know if I always did that. I think I just felt like I had to make more money, or I had to do X, Y, and Z. But why was it actually important to me? Take a step back and write that down. This question is my favorite thing I do in the discovery process, is who needs to know about my goal? And for women especially, there should be 2 people that right now you don't need to talk to about your involvement with Tech Moms or your big dreams that you have for the future, whatever they may be. And I hope you're letting yourself dream big. Or again, tonight just is the start of dreaming big. And there's always at least a few people that will be in your corner. I just experienced this with a good friend who I've helped. She's one of the smartest women I know. She's a nursing educator with her master's in nursing. She launched a nutrition for baby businesses, a business, kind of consulting on the side. So she's still a nurse. She worked at Stanford Children's Hospital. I mean, she's just incredible. And when she decided to launch this business, she said, oh my gosh, but you're not going to believe it. I talked to my sister about my idea, and she said, no one's going to pay me to do this. I said, wait, which sister did you talk to? And she tells me, I'm like, oh, the really frugal one who gets free advice from you about what to feed herself and her baby. And she laughs and she goes, I know, but I think there's a point to that no one's going to pay me. And I said, she's not your client. She's never going to be the person who's going to believe in this concept. Don't go talk to someone who doesn't like technology about your involvement in tech moms. Figure out who can be in your corner and rally behind you, and keep it to yourself if there isn't anyone. And then figure out how to build your inner circle with people who need to know about your goal, because they'll push you. And then lastly, what's the first step? I'd say you're already probably past that by just being a part of this tonight, of the program in general. But maybe there are some new next steps that you need to take that you can write down, that are really important to, what is important for what you have deemed your priorities to be. Sorry, I accidentally skipped ahead here. Lastly, because I want to get to questions. Once you kind of dive into what's out there, I call this job sourcing. And how perfect is this quote at the bottom for this audience? It is never too late to be what you might have been. It's never, ever too late. I just had a woman write about this for my blog. She got her PhD in her 60s. It's incredible. It's never too late. But I want you to have specific jobs in mind. So spend some time on LinkedIn and Indeed and Glassdoor. Look at these places that are hiring right now, and you can start to think about where your gaps are and use that as a guidepost as you put your resume together and continue to educate yourself. And then, write down your job description. What does your job look like? And again, maybe that's not the next job because you're not qualified to do it yet, but maybe you will be eventually, or maybe you're on this path and you just need to tweak it a little bit so that your North Star is, a little closer to where you want to land. And then lastly, I just want to quickly tell you about my courses, then I can answer questions. Please put them in the chat. Robin, do we have some questions okay, perfect. I want you to add me on LinkedIn, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, because I give away so much information for free. And so if you felt like this was helpful at all, there's more of that. There's more of me blabbing and sharing basically what I wish everyone in my life had talked to me about. This was just, the tip of the iceberg. I can only get through so much in an hour. But I hope this is helpful, and more importantly, that I'm cheering you on. If you feel like you have no one else who believes in your ability to take on that goal, to do something new and different, I'm already there. I already believe in you, because the fact that you are here tonight and taking an hour of your time to listen to someone like me, it just shows that you're willing to make a big change. And I am in awe of that. I think you're really courageous. So, Robin, let me know, what questions do we have?
Well, first of all, we have a comment in here that your photos on your website are gorgeous. So,
I need to give props to my photographer, and she is such a cool example of what I just talked about. Her name is Bree Welch, and she's from Pepper Fox Photography. If you go on her website and look at her about section, she's here in Utah, and she talks about how she thought she would have to do weddings and family to be a photographer, but she only does headshots. And her whole site talks about how she had told herself, I have to be a wedding photographer. No one's ever going to hire me just to do headshots. And she is so expensive, and she's booked up months in advance. So a cool kind of imposter syndrome example, but thank you. It's all Bree.
I love that. And I love so much of what you've talked about tonight is so important in kind of peeling away the layers and the beliefs that we've told ourselves about what success is going to look like for us, but recognizing that it could look a different way. So, and I'm excited for you to talk about your courses a little bit and the other things that you've got to offer. But I know that one of the things, if we're, starting and able to work with a career coach, that's fantastic. But also if we're just finding other people who will like talk straight with us and kind of give us the true story, I think that's going to help us out as well as we're having these conversations. So I would love to test out a goal that some of our tech moms have. So one of the things is that I'm trying to make this a SMART goal. I don't know if I'll get all the pieces.
It's here. Okay. That takes some practice, and I usually have to write it down and look at it for a long time. So
right, for sure. I think I mean, well, maybe you can help model this with me. If I were coming here tonight and saying, this whole tech industry is so new to me, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to identify the right even the right job title for me, right?
Yeah.
The right area that I want to go move into. Turning that into a SMART goal. Like, how do I pick up the pieces to know what a SMART goal would look like in terms of, I want to do some career exploration and start to identify a good pathway for myself?
I love that question. And I kind of, rush past this because we're getting towards the end here. But that's really what I believe job sourcing to be. I like to reverse engineer this process because you and I could sit down and talk about what you're great at and what you would love to do. Like, I would love to work on my laptop from the beach every day. A lot of people won't pay me what I want to make in order to afford that. So I have to actually see what people are hiring for and what they're looking for. And right now, words are really important. Getting past an applicant tracking system, which Angela will talk about a ton next week. Things like customer retention versus or client retention versus customer service. Those things are changing, and maybe they've changed since you've had a full-time job or you've never had a job like this before. So I would spend time looking, and as you're reading a job description, let yourself get excited. Try not to get frustrated as you read a description and say, there's no way I could ever do this, and maybe I could do part of this. One thing I wish all women understood is that job descriptions are a wish list. Very, very rarely does an employer intend to get someone with 100% of the qualifications. If I got close to 70 when I was hiring a ton, I felt like I'd won. So I would put, a ton of qualifications in there and see what I got. And so, take that same approach. It's kind of like dating. It's so painful, but go and look and then talk to people. Be relentless about talking to people. I have a cool example from just a few months ago in my Facebook group, which you should add yourself to. It's just the Livelihood Community Group on Facebook. It's private. It's all existing or former clients or employees of mine who've gone through this with me, this messy process. And I had a friend, she lives down the street from me. She had said something to me like, I really just need a job, 10 to 15 hours from my laptop from home. She's tech savvy and she speaks Spanish. Those are her qualifications. She used to sell with Mary Kay and she did very, very well. Didn't really see how that was translatable to something new, and has had some kids and hasn't worked for a while. 2 days later, I had a friend who owns a construction business that is just blowing up say, I just need someone 10 to 12 hours a week. And I need them to just like sit down at a laptop and be capable of responding to emails. And if my friend Melissa hadn't told me that, there's no way I would have thought of connecting them. I had no idea she wanted a job. I connected them. They've been working together for almost a year now. The company has blown up. She has since gone full time. She has people under her now. Every time I see the friend who hired her, she thanks me and I remind them I want a finder's fee. But anyway, her networking, we were at a park with our kids and I was pregnant and she's like, I really want a job. And she brought that up because she knows what I do. But talk to other moms. Maybe their husband works somewhere, they work somewhere that has an opening, or their uncle or their aunt is looking for someone. Just be relentless about networking. Networking, we think of like we're holding a beverage and at a happy hour. That's not what it is. So between those two things, job sourcing and networking, that's where I would start. See what's out there and then figure out how your goal can match that. If you feel like I don't even know where to start, see what people are hiring for right now.
Awesome. I think our time is going to like shut off automatically through this stream. We did have a couple more questions in the chat, and so I might go ahead and go to it. Everybody, if we just cut off all of a sudden, I know there's also a lag between where Britt and I are in the live stream. So take a look at this page that she's got up here. Please follow her on Instagram, connect with her on LinkedIn, join this Facebook group. There's a lot of great stuff in here. I think the question of what do you do when you're clear about your goals, but you can't actually land the job despite doing all the work? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm guessing there's a gap in either your skill set to what you're applying for, your resume and what you're applying for, or your interview skills. And those are all things that no one really teaches you how to do. And I hate to get all salesy, like, this is what I do. And my courses are so reasonable. Like I'm not making a lot of money off of them right now because it is so much more important to me that this information just gets out there. So if you're hearing back and you're getting interviews, then your resume is okay, but your interview skills need some work. If you're not even hearing back, then you probably need some help with your resume, and then you need to prepare for your job interviews. And you guys, I work with people as an interview coach who are CEOs. This is a skill set that, especially if you haven't done in a long time, you may think you interview well, but you probably could use some refining. But the main thing I will tell you, and I hope if you're having this problem, you join next week, is that you've got to customize your resume. And that's Angela's bread and butter. And she's a ton of free resources, just like I do on my blog, about doing that. So depending on what stage, if you're getting that first interview and not hearing back, that's an interview skill set gap. If you're not even hearing back at all, then either you're applying to the wrong jobs or your resume isn't where it needs to be for the jobs you're applying to.
Those are great insights. Thank you so much. I think we're going to wrap it up. We've already gone a minute over time. Britt, thank you so much. I'll invite the women on the call again. I'll make sure that I've got this information for you. And we've had some good feedback in the chat, lots of thank yous and other things of people feeling excited about the things that they've heard tonight. So hopefully we'll know how to reach out and access some of these resources that you've got here. And everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. This is our first Better Way Thursday for the fall here, hosting it through Fairstream. I know it is a little bit different, but we are grateful to have you here and to have access to this portal. So thank you for that. And again, I just want to mention two things really quickly. As Britt mentioned, we have Angela here next week, and she's a fantastic resume writer. And then the following week, we have a tech executive who is going to talk about her journey from very, very early, no tech background, single mom, moving through a career ladder that she called a career jungle gym, moving to where she is now the vice president over technical aspects at a large tech company. So she's had quite the journey, and that's going to be an inspiring story for us. So everybody, thank you so much. We'll go ahead and sign off. And Britt, again, thank you for being here tonight with us. And we will hope to all see you soon. We hope to see you next week.
Bye-bye. Thanks for having me.